In 1884, the Filipino community in Madrid was abuzz with excitement after two Filipino painters garnered some of the coveted awards during the Exposición Nacional de Bellas Artes de Madrid, Madrid National Exhibition of Fine Arts. Juan Luna won one of the gold medals for his painting El Expoliarium, while Félix Resurreción Hidalgo won one of the silver medals for his painting Virgenes Cristianas Expuestas al Populacho. It was a bittersweet win since the highest honors were neither conferred on Luna or Hidalgo, however, a victory still considering the important commissions they garnered after. Filipino nationalist José Rizal delivered a toast at a banquet in the Restaurant Ingles in Madrid in honor of both painters. This is one of his most iconic speeches, meant not only to celebrate both painters but to put across an important point that resonates among all people of color to this day. The speech was originally delivered in Spanish and was first published in the magazine, Ambos Mundos, Madrid on the same year it was delivered. It later reprinted in a brochure called Homage to Luna, published by José Rizal in Guayabella 1888. One of the most widely accepted English translations was done by Filipino historian Encarnación Alzona for the Rizal Centennial Commission. I thought of revisiting the original Spanish version to work on a lit critter English translation of this iconic speech. Gentlemen, as I speak, I do not fear that you will listen to me with indifference. You share in our enthusiasm, which motivates the youth, and so you cannot help but indulge us. A sympathetic mood fills the air, bonds of brotherhood radiate in all directions. Gracious souls listen, and because of this, my lowly nature neither fears nor do I doubt your goodness. Men of courage seek only courage, and from this space where noble sentiments prevail, you pay trivial matters no mind. You see the bigger picture, you judge the cause, and you extend a hand to people like me who are one with you in a single thought, a common aspiration, the glory of genius, the splendor of the motherland. Behold, this is why we have gathered. In the history of mankind, there are names that evoke certain feelings and bring to mind thoughts of greatness. There are names that, like magic spells, conjure pleasant thoughts, names that remind us of lasting bonds, a symbol of peace, or a knot of love between nations. Such are the names of Luna and Hidalgo, whose excellence lights up the very ends of the earth, the East and West, Spain and the Philippines. When I utter their names, I see before me two shining arches rising from both regions and eventually meeting at the peak. They are fueled by a shared origin, uniting both nations in a lasting bond, two nations inseparable by sea or space, two nations that refuse to allow the seeds of division sown by despotic men to grow. Luna and Hidalgo are the pride of both Spain and the Philippines. Both men may have been born in the Philippines, but they could just as well have been born in Spain, for genius knows no country. Genius is everywhere. It is like light or air. It is the heritage of all, cosmopolitan like space, life, and God. The colonial era of the Philippines is ending. The noble acts of her sons will cease wasting away at home. The oriental chrysalis is leaving the cocoon. A new day is beginning. The people who have been kept in the dark nights of history while the sun shone on other continents have begun to stir awake, electrified by the spark of life ignited by connecting with other people in the West. They are reclaiming the light, life, and civilization, which time had once bequeathed them, hence reaffirming the eternal laws of constant evolution, movement, transformation, and progress. You know this well and you take pride in it. The exquisite diamonds that embellish the Philippines' crown are yours. The Philippines provided these precious stones while Europe polished them. As we gaze upon your works with pride, we consider ourselves the fire, the breath, and the basic material. These men were inspired by the poetry of nature, nature in all its great and terrible cataclysms, its shifting states and colliding forces, sweet, serene, and wistful, nature that has left her signature on all things she has shaped and created. Her sons carry this mark with them wherever they go in their character and in their accomplishments. Despite your limited knowledge of our nation, you will notice her in all things, from the foundations of knowledge, like the soul that inhabits all things, like the spring of a mechanical contraption, like the basic elements that make up all things, like raw material. It is impossible to conceal one's feelings. It is impossible to be one thing and act differently. Contradictions are only apparent, they are only paradoxes. In the Expoliarium, one hears the tumult of the crowd, the cry of the slaves, the din of the armor on the corpses, the sobs of the orphans, the murmur of prayers, with just as much intensity and realism as hearing the crash of thunder amidst the roar of a waterfall or the fearful and frightful rumble of an earthquake. The very same nature that contrives such phenomena moves the painter's brush. On the other hand, Hidalgo's canvas beats with a pure, unadulterated vibe, an expression of genuine melancholy, beauty and frailty, victims of brute force. This is so, for Hidalgo was born beneath that brilliant, blue sky, lulled by the lullaby of the sea breeze, the stillness of the lakes, the poetry of the valleys, and the majestic composition of the mountain ranges. In Luna we encounter shadows, contrasts, fading lights, mystery and mayhem like the dark tempests of the tropics, flashes of lightning and bellowing volcanic eruptions. While in Hidalgo we find light, color, harmony, feeling, clarity, like the Philippines on a serene, moonlit night, in tranquil days when the horizon invites us to meditate and reflect on eternity. And both men, despite their distinct differences, in appearances at least, are one and the same, just as our hearts are, despite our distinct differences. Both, by reflecting on their palates the bright beams of the tropical sun, transform them into rays of unfading glory that cast a halo around the motherland. Both embody the spirit of our social, moral, and political life, humanity put to the test, humanity without redemption, reason and aspiration in an open struggle with anxieties, fanaticism, and injustices, because feelings and opinions bore passages through the thickest walls, because to them, all bodies have pores, all are transparent, and if they lack a pen, if the press will not help them, the palette and brushes will not only please the eye but will also eloquently convey the message. If the mother teaches her language to her child so that this child may understand her joys, needs, or pains, Spain, as the mother, also teaches her language to the Philippines, despite the opposition of the short-sighted and the pygmies who, while complacent in the present, fail to see the future or consider the consequences. These blind men are stunted, corrupt, and corrupting wet nurses who snuff out all genuine feelings, who pervert the hearts of the people, who sow into people's hearts the seeds of discord which later bear poisonous fruit, the death of future generations. But let us cast these sorry thoughts aside. May the dead rest in peace, for they are already dead. They no longer breathe nor have a soul. Worms have eaten their flesh. Let us forget this grim memory. Let us not allow its stench to contaminate our joy. Fortunately, our band of brothers are greater in number. Generosity and nobility are innate under the sky of Spain. All of you here are proof of that. You have responded unanimously, you have contributed, and you would have given more if more was required. By joining us to celebrate and honor the illustrious sons of the Philippines, you also honor Spain, for you know very well that Spain's borders do not end at the Atlantic, the Cantabrian, or the Mediterranean. What a shame it would be for the sea to limit the bounds of her greatness, her thought. Spain is there where charitable influence is felt, where it will be remembered forever. What use are pieces of red and yellow cloth, what use are guns and cannons in a place where love and affection do not sprout, where there is no synthesis of ideas or harmony of opinions? Luna and Hidalgo are yours inasmuch as they are ours. You love them, and we see in them generous hopes and precious examples. The Filipino youth in Europe, always enthusiastic, and other people whose hearts remain forever young because of their selflessness and enthusiasm, offer Luna a crown, a humble present, yes, to our enthusiasm, but the most spontaneous and freest of all the gifts that have been offered so far. However, the Philippines' gratitude towards her illustrious sons remains unsatisfied. In the desire to unleash ideas that have been percolating in our minds, to the emotions that fill our hearts, and to the words at the edge of our lips, we have gathered in the banquet to unite our desires so that these two races that love each other so deeply may forge a single bond. Over the course of 4 centuries, both nations have been intertwined morally, socially, and politically. May they share a common future as one nation. I drink, then, to our artists, Luna and Hidalgo, the legitimate and genuine pride of both nations. I drink to all those who supported them both on the arduous path of art. I drink to the Filipino youth, the hope of my country. May you emulate their precious examples so that Mother Spain, who has the best interests of her provinces at heart, may finally implement the reforms she has long thought of. The furrow is drawn and the land is fertile. And finally, I drink to the happiness of the parents who, from afar, have been deprived of the affection of their children. They follow their children with moistened eyes and longing hearts across land and sea, sacrificing on the altar of the common good the sweet consolations that are so scarce at the twilight of life, like precious and solitary winter flowers blooming on the snowy edges of the grave.